6 of Passes and Matchmakers. Leanne, what the hell are you playing at? Jane was reapplying makeup in front of the big mirror in the bathroom. I don't know what you're on about, called back Leanne, who was still in one of the little cubicles. Re-emerging a few moments later, Leanne began brushing her hair and redoing her makeup. You know what I mean. Mitch's coming here was no coincidence. You invited him, didn't you? There had been something in the way Leanne had said, "Here he is," that had told Jane the extra guest was by no means unexpected. I'm not up to anything, said Leanne defensively. I'm just giving you a push in the right direction, that's all. Oh, bloody hell, Leanne, what makes you think I need a push? What makes you think I'm not happy being single? What makes you think he'll be interested? I don't need someone playing matchmaker. Leanne looked at her amused. Why, you think he'll not be interested? That's just about the speech everyone gets from him every time he meets a pretty girl. What are you on about now? Jane's attitude had changed from mild annoyance to full-blown curiosity. Leanne smiled and moved her hands to her hips. Let's just say you and him are hardly pearls apart. You're perfect for each other. Jane stared blankly for a minute. Leanne rolled her eyes in mock annoyance. Flaming hell, girl! Do I have to spell it out? You're painfully shy, and so is he. You've not got much confidence, and unjustifiably in my opinion, and neither does he. Though in God's name I can't think why. I just think you could be really good for each other and help each other over the mutual shyness. Jane was flabbergasted. A good-looking fellow like him, and he that right shy? Surely it was a joke. You have got to be kidding me, right? Asked Jane, still rather puzzled. Leanne shrugged. A person's nature is a person's nature, I suppose. He always was a bit on the shy side. But when he was 18, he got engaged to this girl, a right cow by all accounts. By the time she was finished with him, his confidence was shattered, the bitch. Oh, I see, was the only response. In reality, what she was thinking was that she would like nothing better than to give the guy a big hug. She blushed again at the fleeting thought. Come on, urged Leanne. Mitch will be wondering where we are. Mitch smiled up from his seat as the two ladies appeared. Hello there, girls. Jane suddenly noticed how he always kept his eyes downcast. He never looked anyone full in the face. Funny, she hadn't noticed till Leanne had pointed it out. And her heart went out to him. It was bad enough being shy and unconfident just because it was in your nature. To have the fact that somebody you trusted turned around and hurt you must be awful. After inquiring as to whether the girls wanted another drink, Mitch headed up to the bar. You like him? Asked Leanne, smiling as Jane nodded and turned a deep shade of crimson. You and he have never dated? Asked Jane, finding it hard to believe that Leanne didn't like the guy herself. Leanne shook her head. No, under ordinary circumstances then perhaps. He's like a big brother to me, really. Mitch came back with the drinks just as a section of slow songs started playing. The Carpenters, we've only just begun, started it off. Ask him to dance, hissed Leanne. Jane frowned. What? I said ask him to dance, she hissed through clenched teeth. Come on. Jane swallowed, trying to dislodge the lump that suddenly rose in her throat. Come on, came the insistent whisper. Mitch, began Jane. I was wondering if you'd like to dance. Mitch nodded shyly and smiled. Yeah, I'd like that. A couple of moments later, and the reluctant pair were on the dance floor. I hope you realise I've got 2 left feet, admitted Jane, as the first strains of the next song started. Cautiously, she stepped into his arms, and rather awkwardly he put his arms around her waist. Racking her brains for something to say, and feeling uncomfortable, she started to make small talk. So, Mitch, that's your name, isn't it? Mitch nodded and laughed a little as they moved to the music. Yeah, it was my parents' idea of a joke, I think. Jane interjected quickly. Oh, no, I think it's a very, nice name. Mitch shook his head but smiled down at the woman in his arms. Leanne, he offered. You'll learn to love her. Jane nodded. Leanne was certainly in a class of her own, all right. She couldn't agree more with that. Well, this wasn't so bad. Maybe, she thought, she could try a proper conversation now. So, what do you do? She was trying desperately not to tread on his toes. Oh, I'm a computer software programmer. This is ridiculous, Mitch. Talk to her. Mitch mentally tried to coach himself into talking to Jane. So, Jane, Leanne tells me you're going to John Law and studying. Damn it, that was really dull. Yeah, I am. Child psychology. So, asked Mitch, Leanne tells me that you've moved all the way from down south. Jane nodded. She was beginning to enjoy herself now, despite the butterflies that seemed to be beating their wings against her stomach. What brings you to Liverpool? Pressed Mitch, all the while searching for things to talk about, trying not to sound like a stammering, nervous schoolboy. Jane looked down at the floor for a moment, almost treading on Mitch's toes in the process. It's a long story, was the evasive reply. Maybe you can tell me sometime, said Mitch softly, and there went the butterflies again. This was so odd, the feelings that were being stirred up, just by being in his arms, just by dancing with this, stranger, were almost frightening. So, what religion are you? He still wasn't quite making eye contact, but there were subtle improvements. Oh, that's an easy question. It's definitely red. Mitch smiled back. Right answer. You think we'll make it to next year's Champions League? No problem. What with Steve and Gerard, we've got it made. So we have. Leanne was watching them from where she sat and smiled to herself. You were so right about those two, girl. What a topic for conversation in a few years' time. At last, it was 1 a.m. and the place had emptied out. Leanne walked up to Mitch and Jane and tapped Mitch on the shoulder. I hate to spoil your fun, but it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and I really think I'd better be getting home, and so should Jane. Jane smiled brightly as the two of them broke apart. Yeah, it's time to go home. I've got to really get started on my flat tomorrow. I'll come over and give you a hand, promised Leanne, and so will we. She nodded her head at Mitch, who grinned and nodded. Come on, girls, I'll give you a lift home, offered Mitch. I'll not have you making your own way home in the pitch dark. Putting the key in her door and letting herself in, Jane was at last alone with her thoughts. She could strangle Leanne for being so brazen. However, she had to agree Mitch was a great guy and a great dancer. She'd never enjoyed herself so much in years. As she cuddled down into bed, she wondered what the coming days and weeks would bring. She fell asleep with a smile playing about her lips. Things were working out just grand. As she fell asleep, she was lost in thought again. May 1984. Mum, where are you? 13-year-old Jane had just come in the back door. It was 4 o'clock and the teenager had just finished school. Her mother looked surprised when she came into the kitchen and found her daughter crying. It was a lovely sunny day, and generally the adolescent was usually happy to be out in the sun. It made her feel better. Mum, the child tried again to speak through hitching sobs. I hate that Billy Pearson, he's horrible. Her mother got out some milk from the fridge and poured her daughter a glass. Why don't you calm down, my love? I can't understand what you're trying to say when you're like this. Well, you know the school disco on Saturday night. Her mother nodded. The school disco was all the girl had been talking about for the last 3 weeks. She smiled as she listened intently to the rest of the tale. Well, I was hoping Billy might take me, 'cause I thought he was dead nice like. But he said, Her mother gathered the girl into her arms as she sobbed. Jane tried again to finish. He said he wasn't going to save me because I was a freak and he didn't go out with freaks. I am a freak. Look at me. Who at my age has never had a boyfriend? She thought as she stirred slightly from the dream. The next morning dawned bright and sunny, with a gentle breeze blowing. Jane was sleeping soundly when a knock at the door woke her from her slumber. Stretching and yawning, she got out of bed, muttering under her breath. She was surprised to see Leanne and Mitch, paint cans and brushes in hand. She blushed as she realised she was still in her night things. Hi, Jane, love. We've come to give you a hand, like. Not even dressed you. Did we wake you up? Jane rubbed at her eyes and smiled. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Can you give me 5 minutes to get dressed and then I'll put the kettle on before we get started? Half an hour later, they were all busily painting. The kitchen was a bright lemon yellow. Jane heartily approved of the colour, made it feel like summer all year long. The sitting room was a warm cream, which matched Jane's brown leather 3-piece suite. The bedroom was painted a rose pink. Pausing for a break, Mitch went to get some fish and chips for lunch. You and Mitch seem to be getting on well last night. I told you, you just need a gentle push in the right direction. Jane's eyes flashed with amusement. A gentle push? Leanne, it was more like a kick up the backside. So, what's happening with you two now, like? Jane just shrugged her shoulders, but said no more, as a knock at the door told them Mitch had arrived back. Summer 2003 was finding Jane Albright very busy. She had started her course and was enjoying it very much, though it was admittedly hard work. At the weekends, and whenever else she had some spare time, she would look after little Charlie Adams. Leanne was frustrated that as yet Mitch and Jane had not sorted themselves out and become officially an item. She was so sure she had been right about the two of them. I'll bang your heads together, just see if I don't, said Leanne bitterly one day as she came to pick up Charlie after work. Change the record, Leanne. Maybe it's just not meant to be, came the retort as Jane handed the boy back to his mother. Yeah, well, you don't know a good thing when it's gift wrapped and handed to you, grumbled Leanne. Jane rolled her eyes and grinned as she watched Leanne carry Charlie home. The summer was long and hot. Jane had started a placement at a local nursery with the promise of full-time employment once she had completed her course. Life in general was slowly clicking into place. There was still just one piece of the puzzle missing. She often thought about that spring night, how he had held her when they danced, their rather awkward conversation, and how her heart had ached for him. She hadn't seen him since the day he had come to help with the decorating, and she often thought about him. Leanne lamented oft times that she was going to drag him over and lock the two of them in a room together to sort themselves out. It was either that or bang their heads together, she would say with a mock scowl. One day, near the end of Jane's second week at John Moore, she was in her last class. Jenna Swanson, who sat next to her, smiled as they were dismissed. Have you got a boyfriend, Jane? She asked. Jane smiled. Boys were Jenna's favourite subject. She could talk about boys till the cows came home. Jane shook her head as they headed into the bright sunshine. No, but She was just about to say, I'm on the lookout, when she caught sight of a figure waiting in the street outside. Who's he? He's nice, asked Jenna, looking at the stranger appreciatively, following Jane's gaze. He's a mate of mine, she said quickly. See you on Monday, Jenna. She tossed over her shoulder quickly. She approached the lone figure cautiously.